PCD, PCD, PCDcast.
Welcome to PCDcast. In this new podcast, we're going to be bringing you the latest trends from marketing and business development. We'll be giving you ideas on how you can grow your business and really get results in 2024. I'm delighted today to be welcoming our first guest on the podcast, Karen Stenning. Karen is a co-founder of VOE Speaker Agency based down here in Hove on the South Coast. She has a background in diversity and inclusion as well as events, and VOE Speaker Agency are bringing something very different to the corporate events world, bringing speakers and new voices to your event or away day. Well, welcome, Karen. Great to see you here at our offices in Hove. You're our very first guest on this podcast. Are you excited to be speaking today with us?
Thank you, David. It's so lovely to be here. Yeah, no, it's great. And I'm really excited to be part of this podcast and to share some insights about events and speaker agency. Yeah.
So we met just before Christmas. You're based here in Hove.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the speaker agency then that you've set up.
Yeah, so I've been in the events industry for about 10 years. I started my career in the charity sector, working for a children's charity, and then that collapsed in 2015, so decided to start. I did quite a lot of events at the charity, but then in 2015, I started an events company, and my main aim was all about bringing people together to create change, because I felt if you can bring people with lots of different experience and knowledge, and whether it be on sustainability or social justice, you can come together and form connections, and then we can create change.
Do you think the physical act of meeting is part of that? I mean, we can all read a lot or absorb a lot of media about these topics, but actually the magic of getting people in a room is quite something that you see, isn't it?
There's nothing like it. I mean, we'll talk a bit about COVID and going online. There were, it does work and you can do it online, but there's nothing quite like the magic of people coming together, that interaction, that chemistry of and people, like-minded people, or hearing new perspectives or hearing new ideas. There's something missing if it's all on a screen, whether it be TV or on a laptop or on your phone. There's something. Humans love humans. We're social creatures, so we love to hear stories. We love to hear fresh new ideas from people, and so I think events are absolutely critical as human social beings, really.
And do you think that, if you've got busy senior people, if they've given time to come to an event, you've got that moment, haven't you, which in a world where people are bombarded, there's a battle for attention. I imagine you've seen it over your career where the policymaker or the very senior person, actually by attending the event, you've given them a moment to think, haven't you, and to challenge perceptions that they'll carry on with them beyond.
100%. Yeah. See, when a business leader comes and attends an event, I mean, that's when people will rock up, seeing that the CEO or someone really significant within that business and seeing that and networking. I mean, I think lots of people can say, you can put lots out on LinkedIn and social media and Instagram, but I think quite often I found with my own business, so I had an events company for, sort of nearly a decade. Most of my work that I've got has been word of mouth or networking, being at events. It's great to, post on social media or to be present on LinkedIn, but there's nothing quite like meeting people and forming that connection. Relationships are absolutely key.
And at the moment, we're talking to a lot of our customers about the events we've got coming up and their own events, giving them ideas for how they can create the successful face-to-face meeting that gives that spark, as we're saying. I mean, what do you think, in your experience of running events, what are some of the characteristics of things? What makes a good event?
What makes a good event? So when I first started doing events with my event company, I thought one way to just boil it down is just simplicity. So I always, in all my events, I said there were three key aims: that every attendee who came along would walk away with at least one new connection, one new piece of knowledge or advice or skills, and one piece of action that they can take forward. Simple. I'm going to do this today or tomorrow. I'm going to speak to someone about this new idea. But I just think connection, knowledge, action. Those were the three things that I really put into every single event. So in terms of with a private dining club, you're definitely doing that. I hope, it's a networking event. People can meet one another. Hopefully there's someone's going to learn something from someone there, or if someone's speaking at your event. Yeah. And hopefully then they'll follow up with that and take that into their...
Definitely. I mean, knowledge has got to be a big part of good networking, hasn't it? Because, you're exchanging some thoughts on either someone else who can help you, an idea, isn't it? It's the core, isn't it? So just when we were chatting, we were talking about some of the digital channels as well. And I mean, how do you think that the digital channels do help, particularly when you're trying to inform people about certain key topics that can augment and supplement, a good event schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations, and soon we'll talk about my new speaker agency. Because I'm representing diverse speakers at the moment. The truth is that the technology is changing everything. We saw that during COVID and how events all had to go online for a year or two. I think this is probably the first year that we'll be fully out of that now and go back to total norm. But the reality is AI and all these new technologies are here to stay. So, this week I went on something called Hey Jen, where you can create your own avatar. So one of my speakers was who's a wildlife presenter. He said, to go to the jungle, to go to the Arctic takes a huge amount of time. People have already been there to watch animals in wildlife. It takes a big TV crew and all of that. When now the footage is already there. It's already in existence. You can just create an avatar of yourself. And actually it is now about, so where am I going with this? I'm going off. The future, we have to embrace the future. Yeah. But also, we mustn't forget that human relationships are still absolutely fundamental. So yes, the avatars, the AI is going to be, we need to embrace that because it is here to stay. And it also can be really exciting and we can create real innovation and and really spread ideas. But again, I still think...
people are rethinking the way they do things. I mean, that was one of the positives, I guess, of the pandemic, is people are looking at technology, they're looking at different things. Yeah. And also employers and teams are working in different ways now, aren't they? And I mean, what do you think in terms of bringing speakers to events? How does that kind of help people? If people are really starting with a blank piece of paper, looking at different styles of events they could do, where does bringing a speaker in kind of elevate that?
So, I've just started a speaker agency called VOE. And VOE we've called it VOE because it's voice of equality or voice of the earth. So whatever anyone like to call it, VOE or VOE. So anyway, having been in the events industry, I've always been very passionate by diversity and inclusion. And so I've always tried to bring in different voices, different perspectives, and I think they bring a lot of, hearing stories from people which you wouldn't normally hear from, or finding people with new ideas who might not have normally been in that room or been in that platform, brings a lot of innovation, creativity, imagination. And during events that I've produced, I found that there was quite a lot of the speaker agencies already. There's a lot out there. There's very celebrity focused, or there's not been much diversity or representation of our lived world. But so the whole point of
maybe the people think of the traditional speaker as being, like you say, that headline act that draws a crowd.
Yes,
but that's just one. I mean, and you wouldn't. I'm sure you'd think that booking a headline act is great. Yeah. But there's many other ways to do it, or to challenge the audience, isn't there? To provoke thought, to create creativity beyond just listening to after dinner stories, isn't it? I mean,
and it's great, to get a big celebrity who's been on the BBC, or that's really fun, and it's a big draw. But actually, there are all these new, and there's so many fabulous people with amazing stories that and from that you can gain such valuable insights from their stories, their lived experience. One example is I've been talking to a fashion brand who got in a manager of a football club to come and talk to their senior leadership about taking this football club from not particularly the lower leagues and bringing it up to the Premiership. Now, one of my friends in this, he was saying, why am I listening to, we're a fashion brand, why am I listening to a football club? But the transfer of skills and how, as a leader, it's universal themes. So isn't it brilliant how to get these different perspectives, different ideas from different industries and cross-pollinate to share ideas?
Is it hard to find and bring these speakers through? Because I imagine like the traditional speakers we think of, they're all there singing and dancing and obvious, but these voices that you want to bring forward. So how do you go about finding new speakers or helping them get the confidence, I suppose, in a sense, to come forward and tell their story? Yeah,
I mean, some of them, they are very young or it's new. And I think the plan is to collaborate with some academy or some places that we can get some speaker training for some of them, because they might have all the brilliant ideas, but might not be the best after dinner speaker or keynote speaker. So that's in the pipeline to do that. But I'm also finding some of the younger generation, these Gen Zs, super confident and got incredible ideas, and they've got this innate confidence. It's just with great ideas,
and they can deliver messages, I guess, to an audience that is surprising or makes them think in a way.
Yeah, and I think when we all quite often, all of us are innately, we live in a bubble, we live in our own little world, and everyone's, you brought it up earlier, very busy, especially if you're a CEO or senior C-suite level. We're all very busy, and then suddenly you're organising an event, and to try and get people from outside of your normal networks, we all live in our yes, as I say, a bubble. And so it's sometimes quite hard to find or think creatively about finding someone outside of your normal networks or we're very lucky here in Hove. It's a bit of Brighton and Hove is a bit of a melting pot for innovation and leaders. But I'm hoping with the speaker agency, we can go to companies and help them to find new ways, or finding, okay, you might be in the financial services, but we can help you bring someone in from AI world or technology, cross-pollinate, and this will help hopefully bring innovation to our own business.
And also in this way that with new ways of working, teams are getting together. So are you seeing there being interest in firms doing smaller meetings, but with facilitators, with different speakers coming in, challenging ideas, not just the big public client events, but actually more intimate gatherings that need a flavour of something else, a reason to get people together and get them talking?
I think so. And I think, I'm very mindful also of people who are introverted. Sometimes they don't want to be speaking, and we've actually got one of our speakers is something called Shy and Mighty. She talks about being shy and how, but actually she brings so much to companies, because being an introvert, those people quite often don't get a look in.
Companies are built by extroverts, and for the office environment, the traditional office environment is that, isn't it? And so it's sort of
and those who are
reframe people's thinking.
Exactly, the person who's got shouts the loudest and seen the most, but actually you might have the absolute gem in your company. It's the quiet one, and
there's more. I mean, you observe more companies today taking diversity and inclusion really seriously, particularly amongst our membership professional services firms, are addressing it with some vigour. But I mean, what do you see in terms of, is that reflected then in the demand you're seeing to do in the sector generally? Are you seeing these companies actually following through on commitments, or do you, when you look at the media and things, do you see headlines and positive noise, but sometimes with a lack of substance?
Couldn't agree more. I think in the media, we've been talking about it for a really long time. Like, we need gender equality, we need racial equality, and I'm working with one organization around ageism as well. And, lots of people around the 50s have been kicked out of their corporate jobs, and for whatever reason. There is a lot in the news, whether it's actually, like my example I use quite often, we're nowhere near gender equality in the UK alone. Like, in the FTSE 100, I think we've only got 3 female CEOs. So when people are going, oh, it's going the other way, I'm like, well, out of the FTSE 100, we've still only got 3 female CEOs.
There's more people called John and Steve than, these terrible statistics, isn't it?
So it's great that the journalists and the media are highlighting these things, but it doesn't seem to be trickling down, and maybe it's going to take generations. But I do think the way we can change that, I think DE&I budgets, so diversity inclusion budgets, aren't big enough in quite a lot of these firms. They need to be putting on events and bringing in different...
Signposting the fact that talent is there. Yeah. Because also female founders is a topic. I mean, in the wealth sector as well, you see a lot of narrative around actually female-led businesses are not getting the investment of their male counterparts. I mean, you've set up
of VC
your own
funding.
business. I mean, what's your take on female founders? I mean, there's a lot of challenges out there, aren't there? And I guess if through speakers and through events you can mobilize and encourage and network people, that's got to be a good thing, hasn't it?
Exactly. And I think, to your point, you were saying, people think things have changed, but they haven't changed really. And actually, bizarrely, during the pandemic, it went backwards. So female founders, still less than 2% of VC funding goes to female-led businesses. It's better in the angel investing, and also if you're a person of color, a female woman of color, I mean, there is literally no money. So,
which is shocking, isn't it?
It's shocking. So things have to change, and I think there's a lot of unconscious bias, and we are all inherently a little bit hardwired, and there is a unconscious bias.
This is the power of a good speaker, though, isn't it? To stop person in their tracks. Sometimes you go to an event and you hear someone, and your paradigm of how you see the world is only your own little.
Exactly.
Silo, isn't it? And then actually a good speaker can really wake you up out of that kind of one directional. We can only flop into having a certain view of the world until and unless someone says, do you know what? It's not the same for me. It's different. And here's what you're missing.
And it's usually, and that's through the power of storytelling. Because I think if you've got a great speaker and they tell their story and they tell of their lived experience, most people will go, I'd never really thought of it that way. So I hope through these stories and through these diverse speakers that we have.
Because for companies as well, this is meaningful, because if you're not hearing the full diversity of experience, then you're perhaps making decisions on a tiny amount of information. You're not really thinking about the full picture. You're either missing talent or you're missing opportunity. So these initiatives are about driving profitability and growth, aren't they? And enhancing the economic output. If we don't, we're leaving a lot of value on the table, aren't we, of people who could be doing great things.
And I also, lots of people think, is this just about doing good? And I totally disagree. I think when you have these different speakers and these different ideas and perspectives, it drives creativity, innovation within your business. Staff employee retention happens. Like if you suddenly you're like, my employer actually cares and has thought about maybe the topics on, you're a middle-aged woman in your company and there's events happening around menopause. You'll suddenly feel I'm being seen and heard. Yeah, you've seen and heard, and I think that's really important. So I think there are many, many benefits to having these diverse speakers.
And what have you got planned for 2024? So last year was your launch of the agency.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's in store? What are you working on at the moment to help you as you settle in and grow?
Yeah. I'm very fascinated about. We touched on AI and I think we have a head of legal, Samantha Oakley. We're really looking into how do we protect our speakers' IP, their intellectual property, because maybe they don't have to fly off and carbon emissions to fly across the other side of the world. Maybe they can do a recording, or we can use more YouTube, TikTok.
Sustainability is huge, isn't it, in events? I mean, only if last week was Davos, where the world descends in the Swiss mountains. Very nice, I'm sure it is, but it's not really ecologically beneficial, is it, to our planet in these times? I mean, what's your sense of sustainability in events? I mean, more people are now, obviously it's on the table now, isn't it? People are thinking about solutions. Tech has to be part of it. But what's your feel on that?
Davos, where they're coming in on their private jets and I mean, these are important. These big, Davos is a great, lots of things happen, lots of, and COP, all of they're really important, and it's to be seen, to be doing, and I know sometimes there's a lot of criticism, but there is also a huge amount gets done, and most people are coming there with great intentions and with impact with planet and people. So yes, things like that.
It's tabling it, I suppose, isn't it? It's in the headlines.
Yeah.
Whether it's the right format.
No, and maybe the future
is another question.
Yeah, maybe the future is where they're all on screens and we do it that way. But I think even probably at Davos, a lot of the deals or the conversations were happening in the night, not in front of on these panels or these keynote talks. I think probably a lot of it will have been done in the after dinner networking and all of that. And that's where it goes back to the importance of relationships and human connection and coming together, because that's probably and so people want to be seen to be at the places like Davos and these big events. And so they're always going to play an important part. And whether, there has been criticism of COP and Davos, there will be something else that will come following on from that. But I think, yes, to your point, sustainability, there are solutions using technology but also even for me, I worked with a sustainable event production company for a while, and I'm just thinking of new ways of creating stages and recycling, because there's a lot food waste and all of that.
Yeah.
There's all that side of things as well. So.
And have you got any exciting events coming up that you're working on that you can share with us a flavour of, or is there anything in the calendar as we go through the year? Got
a big event around women and money happening at Coco's in Camden. So it's empowering women and about financial freedom, I suppose, and tackling gender inequality there.
It's a big topic. I mean, in the wealth sector, from our members, we see that the typical customer has been a male over 50, and essentially the comms and the service is geared towards that client. But more and more empowered female entrepreneurs or people who've perhaps inherited money or other, they want different styles. They've got different objectives.
Yes.
So I think that's a huge theme.
So I'm really excited about that. That's working with Vestpod. Really good. Shout out to Vestpod, who do fantastic work. So we've got that coming up. We've got quite a lot of events around empowering women in their 50s and helping them and working with companies on how do we keep their women in the workplace, because again, we're going to be living into our 80s, 90s, 100. We can't be retiring at 50.
No.
We need to...
we need the second and third act.
Exactly. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not. So a lot of events around that.
And if people are looking for inspiration, they've got events coming, they're looking at a range of ideas. Where can they find you online, on your website, on socials?
So our website is wearevo.com, and then I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm looking for as many companies to collaborate with and really just take some of that stress and strain when they're organising an event and trying to find someone unique and different for there. So if anyone, I'd love anyone to get in touch if they've got some.
Fantastic. Well, look, great to talk to you today, Karen. Thank you for being our very first guest.
I
hope that wasn't too painful.
That was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss the next time on PCDcast.